Hello, hello. Welcome to the Multiverse of Creatures. I am Nick, and Donovan will be joining me today,
Sup, bitches?
and we have a real treat for you today. So, last time you guys heard us talk about the oh so mighty and really fucking whacked out uh, black spiral dancers from Werewolf. Today, we are going to be diving into a creature that is just as infamous, but in the world of Dungeons and Dragons. Actually, it's the second part of the dungeon part. It's dragons. Dragons are almost as infamously wildly known in Dungeons and Dragons as black spiral dancers are in Werewolf. And the really cool part is that we're in the 5th edition of Dungeons and Dragons, and there's less dragons than there were 4 editions ago.
It seems like there's less dungeons too, but
Right.
give and take.
Depending on where we are in that. But here's the really cool part. So in 5th edition, we have chromatic dragons, we have gem dragons, and we have metallic dragons. But 2 editions ago, two editions ago, that's 3rd edition, we had chromatic, we had metallic, we had farius, we had planar, we had lung dragons. The fuck's a lung dragon, for God's sakes? Oh, wait.
Those are the dragons of Chinese and Japanese myth and folklore. Probably a few of the others as well. But that was because of Oriental adventures. Of course, calling it that now is probably extremely problematic, but I give no fucks.
Right, because that's what it was called, though. That's literally what it was called under the second edition.
Yeah,
3rd edition.
Yeah, 2nd edition. They didn't do that in 3rd, 3.5 or 4th edition. There's a lot of stuff that was made for 2nd edition or AD&D, your pick, because they're essentially there's a lot of overlap, a lot of the same thing. Point is that AD&D had a metric assload of content, and then when they went to 3rd edition, they ported over some of it and made some changes. For example, Ravenloft, which is a domain of dread now,
right,
was once a part of a setting called, Ravenloft was a setting in AD&D. Barovia was a place in Ravenloft. Now, Barovia is a domain of dread. The rest of Ravenloft just basically fucked off, apparently.
Well, fuck. All right. And Barovia, that's friggin'
Curse of Strahd.
Yeah, God,
Curse
Jesus
of Strahd.
Christ. That's already fucking...
Which, again, has its own history of, apparently problematic things, but, again, I give no fucks.
That's a whole issue. So, we're going to dive into dragons. Now, this is going to be longer than our Spiral Dancer video.
That was fun, I'm not going to lie.
No, that was amazing. We're going to dive a little bit into these because dragons are one of my favorite things in D&D just for the colors and what they represent. But there's so much more than the 5 to 10 dragons that you associate with dragons in D&D. All right, so we'll start on easy mode. We'll go chromatic dragon first. And I say easy mode because this is the one most people will know. But you have red dragons, you have black dragons, blue dragons, green dragons, and white dragons. Let's dive a little deeper into that, though. We have brown dragons.
Yep.
Also called the Great Desert Dragons, where they were wingless, neutral evils. We have purple dragons.
Fun.
Which are also called deep dragons. They were slender, agile dragons who patiently stalked their prey.
Which in 4th edition, they actually mixed up the purple dragon and the deep dragon. They're actually 2 different dragons. Like, don't get your shit twisted. Purple dragons, like, they, depending on who you talk to or what source you're looking at, were either their own branch of the draconic family tree or what happens when a red dragon and a blue dragon decide to make an egg together.
Oh, boy.
You do the math on that one. I really don't feel like it. But deep dragons, their abilities were spore-based, if I remember correctly. They had fungal growths, and their breath weapon was basically like a cloud of spores that induced like hallucinations and poison effects, and it was just really fucking weird. But for a while in the older editions, purple dragons and deep dragons were considered the same. And then in 4th edition, I guess they touch on the purple dragon, but the deep dragon is a completely different entity.
So we also have gray dragons, which are also called fang dragons. They were rapacious, violent dragons that were good at physical combat, but poor at flying. They also possessed an acid breath weapon.
Yeah.
Now here's something that's really friggin' weird. You have yellow dragons, but you also have salt dragons. Nearly one and the same.
The yellow dragon, if I remember, that was its breath weapon, was a liquid paste salt that hardened on contact.
Yes. So these dragons, yellow particularly, had a salt breath weapon, and that's let's scale this up a bit. So acid's pretty bad, but if you've never seen what salt water does to metal,
yeah, it's corrosive.
It's highly corrosive. It's almost nearly.
No, I mean like this. The Yellow Dragon's breath weapon didn't necessarily cause corrosion. All it did was harden. You get hit in the face with that, and it hardens. Guess what? You're not breathing.
Dead.
Unless you have the ability to create water, or you jump into a large body of water and start pulling that stuff off as it dissolves, you're gonna start taking damage from, strangulation, essentially.
Then they had pink dragons, unexceptionally rare species which typically lived in underground layers. They were known to be dopey looking and loved making jokes. So the friendliest of the chromatics. The friendliest.
I think they're the only ones that technically don't have an evil alignment if you follow the alignment chart. Another one of those things that people are kind of fallen off of in recent years. And I totally don't blame them in that regard. The alignment can be
a pain in the ass.
It can be kind of restrictive for certain things.
Right.
Because you can have the most vile, horrible, reprehensible person do something insanely compassionate just to do it. But you can also have a, goody two-shoes commit mass genocide for essentially the same reason, for a good reason. I mean, look at from the Critters movie franchise. I mean, all they did was eat and mate and destroy shit. They knew that this was considered wrong by pretty much everything else, but they just didn't give a shit. Same thing with Tyranids, for example. Tyranids, their sole goal is to render every other living organism into biomass and make more Tyranids. I mean, not something you negotiate with. The Borg, again, we're branching out here. Their goal was to create perfection, and by perfection, that means everything is Borg.
Everything is Borg.
These are not beings that you traditionally associate with good, even though from their point of view, we're the aberration.
Right.
Or just a walking, talking meat sickle.
So, we know red dragons are fire, black dragons are acid breath, blue is lightning, green is poisonous green gas. A lot of people have mistaken it for acid for some reason, but...
Well, technically, a lot of poisons are acidic.
Right.
So it kind of makes sense that, if you're not breathing it in, you might take a light acid damage. As a DM, I would rule it as that. That might piss off some people, but it's like, poisons tend to be pretty caustic.
They do. They are.
I mean, look at the spitting cobra.
Right.
Their poison is, it's a poison. It's a toxin. Even though there's, you can argue differences between poisons and toxins. That's not the point of this.
Right.
But when they spit their venom is corrosive. Like, it will actually start to it'll burn your skin. And if you got like eye protection and it spits in your eyes, it gets on that plastic, it's going to start to damage the plastic.
Right.
So it would make sense that you could have, that green gas be slightly acidic.
Caustic and stuff, yeah.
Well, World War I, mustard gas. Chlorine gas. That stuff was horrible. But it wasn't just your lungs you had to worry about. you mixed some other things. That green gas was also acidic. So it's getting on your skin, it's getting in your lungs, it's doing horrible things to you.
Oh yeah,
Probably a good analog actually for the Green Dragon's breath.
that probably would actually be really good, like chlorine, mustard gas. Yeah, that would be sarin gas actually too.
Sarin gas is a whole other beast to itself, but we can discuss that at another point.
So brown dragons. Now let's dive a little bit more into brown dragons because we covered the. I know I'm skipping a little bit here, but the first 5 dragons, everyone in D&D should at least have an idea of what those do.
They've either seen them or tangled with them, much to their regret, possibly later on.
Or for the certain bards out there, stoinked one.
Or 3. I mean, why stop at 1?
Why just stop
Dragons
at 1?
are like Pringles. Once you stoink one, you just can't stop.
So brown dragons had also a line of acid, which reduced most animals to a little more than sand and dust. That's really terrifying a little bit. In terms of senses, though, brown dragons have the ability to detect vibrations in the ground. That's a little more terrifying than it needs to be, but it makes sense because the brown dragons, like we mentioned, don't have wings. They're purely ground dragons.
I think that brown dragons also had the ability to exhale glass. There's one of those non-traditional chromatic dragons that their breath weapon was basically liquid sand that wasn't hot, but once it stood still, it would harden into glass. Have to double check on that one.
Now, according to this, there is another ability they do have. As they grow more older, they gain the ability to whip up vortex-like sandstorms and summon air elementals and earth elementals. So maybe, I don't know, maybe they were able to also spit glass. It looks like something they could do.
Yeah, we'll double check on that one.
Brown dragons were both ferocious and intelligent. They were not particularly friendly or talkative. And this was mostly due to the fact that they considered most other creatures to be food. So they were the literal dragon. They don't talk. They don't like to be fucking around. They just literally go and eat whatever came to them.
Food will travel.
So they were literally what all dragons aspired to be. Just you die. We don't talk. We die. You die. That's how it works.
It's like, oh, you're talking more? Let me chew harder.
Let me see. Brown dragons and blue dragons, being 2 types of chromatic that lived in the desert environments and liked to burrow in the sand, were considered to be natural enemies. They've often fought each other, with their battles being considered legendary among humans. What does that even look like to see the 2 of them fight, though? That must be a friggin' brutal fight, though.
Actually, I'd be more interested to see a brown dragon fight a copper dragon, because copper dragons like desert terrain as well.
Ooh.
And copper and blue dragons hate each other with an undying intensity. And since they like to, they layer in the same areas, their fights get bad. And it's mostly because blue dragons simply hate the fact that copper just talk and talk and talk. And if brown dragons aren't very chatty,
Oof.
and copper dragons have the equivalent of verbal diarrhea and a hummingbird brain, that seems like that'd be a bit more epic. Of course, they both have acid breath weapons, so that really would, at that point, it would be more air superiority versus ground superiority.
Right. So, yeah, if they both stayed on the ground, I could see the brown dragon actually winning that fight, but if the other one flies, it has the advantage, clearly.
They'll just start dropping big-ass rocks on it.
Pretty much.
Playing whack-a-mole with a brown dragon.
So let's move to purple dragons.
My personal favorite, what I found out about them, other than the orange dragons, but we'll get into the orange
in a moment. So they are always chaotic evil, which makes sense. That's what a good majority of these should be. They had some of the best breath weapons here in D&D history, and I appreciate and love it. So, let's see. Claws of the Deep Dragon were intended to dig through solid rock and such, and were devastating in combat. And the breath weapons dominated depending on the strength of the worm. These effects were attributed to fungal spores of the dragon
Yep,
exhaled.
that would be the deep dragon, not the purple dragon.
Yeah, let's see. Where is... I know there's more on the purple dragon. But you said that purple dragons did... you were saying they did friggin...
Plasma
damage.
Yes.
That's horrifying.
It is. So, now, supposedly, there was a third dragon, technically fourth dragon god, a three-headed chromatic dragon that was, I think it was like purple, orange, and yellow or brown. I don't remember. That is lost to history. Apparently, Tiamat killed and ate this dragon and absorbed its power, supposedly. Canonically speaking, purple dragons are their own species, but technically you can create one by mating a blue dragon and a red dragon. Now, a true purple dragon is immune to both fire and lightning damage, which is of itself, kind of scary. But their breath weapon is neither of those. A true purple dragon's breath weapon is plasma.
Oof.
Now, unlike a lot of dragons, they have 3 ways to do this. Technically, only 2 of them are breath weapons. The first one is if memory serves, a 60-foot cone of plasma. Which, plasma. It's plasma. It fucks shit up.
Right.
The second one is a 60-foot line of plasma. Just a straight shot. Now, you can see where this would give you the whole red dragon, blue dragon vibes. Now, here's where it gets really funky. It gets funky because the third one isn't technically a breath weapon at all. It's referred to as the plasma lance. Now, normally with dragon breath weapons, you get a dexterity saving throw. Dragon rears back, does its belching, roaring, fill in the blank, however you want to do it as a DM, or if you just don't give a shit. They rear back, and out comes death. Well, your players get to roll a dexterity saving throw. And in the purple dragon's case, this is true, except for the plasma lance. The plasma lance is a direct attack. Of all the breath weapons, it's the only one that doesn't give you a saving throw, because it's not technically considered a breath weapon. They pick a target, and they just fire this thing. And it is a shot of fuck everything in front of it until it hits its target. So if it targets the paladin, who happens to be in the back of the party, and you have the druid and the fighter standing between, the paladin and the purple dragon, it's going to go through them. They don't get a dexterity saving throw. They take damage.
That's ridiculous, though.
It is ridiculous. Now, here's the thing. Purple dragons are preferably nocturnal. So when they hunt, they go out at night. They leave their caves because they live underground like the deep dragons. They just don't live as deep. And they go out and they hunt. And they prefer new moons. Because during the new moon, they still see everything. But you don't see shit. And when they hit, it's out of nowhere. And they will usually use their plasma lance to target the most powerful person there. Hey, that spellcaster looks pretty intimidating. Guess what? Plasma lance.
Right.
Fuck him. He's going to be down for a minute if it doesn't flat out kill him. And like the normal rules for, breath weapon attacks, again, if memory serves, you got to roll your d6 as per 5th edition rules. And if they roll a 6, I believe it is, 5 or 6, they get it back and they can do it again. And again.
And again.
And again. But they can still do this with their regular breath weapons as well, so they can mix it up.
That's silly. Alright. Purple dragons are also very family-oriented in comparison. So, that's kind of a fuck with one of us, fuck with all of us situation.
Of all the dragons, they are basically the Italian mob. They like to form. They don't so much love. They tend to congregate in cities, underground, obviously, in the most literal sense of that expression, and they'll build criminal networks. and entire families of these purple dragons will run organized crime rackets, even to the point of forming thieves guild, having humans and the other races that dwell in the city work directly for them. These people never know that the big boss of the thieves guild is actually a purple dragon in human form.
That's wild.
And of course, they are vindictive like other dragons. Whereas you can fight two red dragons and you can kill the sibling of a red dragon and they won't give a shit. Because they'll just eat the remains of their sibling after they kill and eat you, and probably try and find their hoard and steal their shit and add it to their hoard. Why? Because fuck you. You're dead. It's mine now.
Purple dragon, you fuck with the father, the mother comes after you, and the son, and the daughter, and grandma, and grandpa.
And their third uncle twice removed on their aunt's mother's side.
And the drunk cousin that never shows up to the parties except when he's high.
Yeah, pretty much. They are a bit of an oddity amongst dragons as they prize their familial connections and they maintain them. Yes, they do have the whole rivalry thing, but it never gets to the point of violent death. They don't go that far.
So let's talk about your favorite dragon, Orange. Neutral evil, a water dragon of all creatures.
Yep.
Flying and swimming speeds, which we haven't seen in forever. These things are bloody fucking amazing to look at. Not so much to go up against. These things are crazily not even capable flyers. They particularly love the land and water. That's crazy though, because hold on, time out. You have fucking water dragons, but they're not even. Why are they orange as opposed to fucking blue or fucking turquoise? It could be something like that.
See, and when they're on land, they prefer jungle climates, which makes them stand out even more because, big orange dragon in a sea of green. Not really going to ambush anybody, but let's be honest, in water, by the time you realize there's something big and orange coming your way, you're already well past the point of being able to do anything about it. Now read their breath weapon.
Let's see here. Orange dragons were well suited to ambush, but were impulsive enough to be just as likely to attack boldly. One of their preferred tactics was to use your breath weapon on a body of water right beside a camp or a boatload of potential prey and blow in the air to smithereens. Hold on, before you say anything. Okay, it doesn't tell the breath weapon directly, but I'm only going to guess, and it's only a guess because I know we've talked about this before, but I don't really remember much.
Right.
However, that sounds like an explosive weapon mixed in. So it sounds like hydrogen mixed with oxygen, kind of like an atom bomb type thing.
Nah.
What the fuck is it?
Sodium.
Oh my god! The sodium and water explosion. Oh.
So here's the thing, right? Their breath weapon is twofold. If it lands on you, it's raw sodium, and it starts to burn, and will combust if it stays on you long enough, so it can set you on fire.
Fuck.
Now, you're an adventurer, you're fighting this big orange lizard creature, you don't know what the fuck it is, but it looks kind of like a dragon, and it exhales a bunch of this stuff that's making you smoke and start to catch on fire. What's your first reflex?
Throw water on it.
And then you go boom!
Jesus Christ, man. Fuck.
They are assholes.
Orange dragons inhabited tropical forests, and when they laired besides and hunted in rivers, lakes, and swamps, accordingly they were excellent swimmers. They favored their damp environments in part because it means the fires caused by their breath weapon didn't spread. Within their habitats, they sometimes came into conflict with bronze and black dragons. The black dragons typically prefer to avoid the larger, stronger, and more dangerous orange dragon. Hold on, type out. Time the fuck out. You telling me the black dragon, the one that's pretty much the punk kid in school that goes around starting fights, was afraid of the bully because the bully was stronger?
The bully's also bigger. Black dragons, remember, are I believe they're the smallest of all the dragons.
Jesus Christ, that's ridiculous.
You know
Large dragons preferred to prey on rainforest animals and fish and enjoyed supplementing their diet with tropical fruits. Okay, well, that's the first time I've ever heard of that, actually. Never heard of a dragon eating fruit. Yeah, because you have dragon fruit and then you have dragon fruit.
Listen, your fascination with Rocky Mountain oysters, not helping you in this case.
Right. Okay. So, let's take a dive into gray dragons for just a second. They're called fang dragons, and actually, look at the pictures of the gray dragon. I would not want to come up. Look, dragon or no dragon, regardless. But this thing looks like the most terrifying thing. I definitely wouldn't want to meet if it landed in front of me. Thing's covered in spikes. It looks like a fucking night terror.
Actually, to me, it looks like Super Shredder and a dragon made a baby.
Oh, fuck yeah, it does. Shit. Chaotic neutral, so they're not evil, not by trade, but they are chaotic. Their personalities are susceptible to seemingly random outbursts of rage and violence. They were exceptionally cruel and had a tendency to play with their food. However, if backed into a corner, they were quick to bargain for their lives. So they're literally big bark, no, big bark, and then like just
once surrounded. Is worse than their bite.
Very much so. So if someone came up to them and started to step up, they backed up real fucking quick.
No, only if that person was obviously, a bigger threat than they were. Like your average adventuring, let's say your average level 5 adventuring party running doing one of these, yeah, he'll eat them. But if it's a level 15 adventuring party, he's gonna be like, whoa, bro, whoa, dude.
Time out.
Dude, let's not do this. All right? Dude, I have gold. You know?
Now, fang dragons are interesting because they have a really unique ability. The bite of a fang dragon could drain the life force from the victim. Fun fact, they did not originally have a breath weapon. Tiamat, in one of the lores, changed that and gave them acid breath. And fang dragons had the innate yet limited ability to cast a number of spells. So they weren't heavily on the spell casting. These guys were hunters. They were skilled at physical combat, particularly because of their bodies were so lethal. So they could use their muscled wings for quick lunges, use their tails to trip opponents, and they're menacing, and all the while menacing their foes with the bony spurs all over their body. This is a fucking nasty little dragon, though.
Yeah,
I still don't want to be fighting it, though.
You're not grappling that guy.
No, I don't think the one called Couch would dare to either.
Oh yeah, he would. He would, and then he would be like, "No, bad idea." Bad idea.
Okay, now we have yellow dragons or salt dragons. These guys are chaotic evil. They also love the desert, and their abilities loved being able to destroy water, make dust devils, wind walls, improved invisibility. These guys were natural spellcasters, actually, the more they aged, which makes it way different than most of their other abilities. But, because like we mentioned, there's yellow dragon, but also lumped into that were salt dragons. But salt dragons, like you said, let's see. It was, yeah, like you said, they used the liquid, pretty much a liquid salt that would harden. They preferred not to fight near fresh water, since that could be used to counteract the salt blindness.
Yep.
So yeah, so they would use their salt breath weapon to essentially make it so it would be harder to fight them. And that's pretty clever. That's a pretty good set of tactics for them to use. And they were smart. They wouldn't even they would make sure that they weren't by water when use it. So they would strictly use the breath weapon in opening of combat, and then afterwards maul the shit out of people with claws and fangs. That's absolutely a little terrifying. Just in all ideas. Because I mean, shit. I mean, once you fucking like put salt all over someone, they can't even move. They could just die right there.
Yeah, pretty much. Basically, he's the dragon is seasoning their meat before eating.
Pretty much. Like, so here's the question I have. So we mentioned that the salt can harden. Is there a way to get it off with chisel and tools?
Well, I mean, if you could move to your pack, yeah, but how many people carry a hammer and chisel in their pack?
True. What about their own swords and stuff? Like, I mean, true. I mean, you don't really want to be pointing a fucking sword at your face, but I
Yeah,
mean,
but you can smack it.
with like the hilt of your sword and shit. Oh, that's really interesting. That'd be a whole different set of situations.
Because of what they did in 4th and 5th edition, the way they nerfed certain aspects of the game, I think that's part of the reason why some of these dragons were changed or substituted.
Right.
Because, let's be honest, even in 3.5, fighting a salt dragon or a purple dragon or even an orange dragon, that's an encounter for a pretty high level adventuring party. We're talking levels 10 to 15 minimum. Especially like the purple dragon with the family dynamic. Okay, you're a 10th level, you and a party of 10th level adventurers took out a purple dragon. Now you've got an entire family of purple dragons coming after you. Narratively speaking, for roleplay's sake, you don't really get out of that. You'd have to kill them all. For every one that you kill, you're adding to your list of enemies and essentially devolve into the raid.
Ah, shit.
Only it's you fighting a bunch of fucking purple dragons, and they all have a hard-on for your ass.
Now, pink dragons are a little different from our other friends here. Now, most of the dragons we've talked about so far have made it at least into 4th edition. Mostly. There's a couple, like the orange dragon that's only been up to 3rd. But the pink dragon only appears in 2nd edition. It doesn't even appear in 1st. And it doesn't appear after this either. It's the only one here that was just kind of fucked off afterwards. Pink dragons, true to their name, had a delicate pink coloration, and they were often said as dopey looking. And pink dragons love to talk and make jokes, but while not actually malevolent, were prone to eating those who didn't laugh at the jokes. So you had to actually laugh, or you were threatened to be eaten. That's fucking stupid. Oh my god, dude. Dragons lack the fear-inducing aura of other true dragons, and their innate magical abilities were erratic. Only a little less than a quarter of pink dragons cast a spell, always as illusionists. Pink dragons were best known for their unusual breath weapon. Alright, ready for this shit. A special gland in them mixed a fatty secretion with a lye-like liquid, and the resulting goop came out as many, many bubbles, forming a cloud, some 60 feet long, 60 feet wide, and 20 feet high. The soap-like substance was painful if it got into your eyes, and the cloud overall effectively blinded those within it. Jesus fuck, what the hell? Oh no.
Honestly, this feels like a dragon that was made as a joke for someone's campaign that they were running for their kids, and it just got published. Now, I'm not knocking the pink dragon because, let's be honest, having a pink dragon as a trickster antagonist could be fun.
Could be fun. Now here's something really silly. Now I don't know who in the hell would underestimate any dragon, but it's one of this. Despite their decidedly ridiculous appearance, pink dragons were quite dangerous in combat, and many adventurers fatally underestimated them. You don't underestimate a dragon regardless. It's a fucking dragon.
Rule of thumb, if it's pink, it's probably really dangerous.
Right, yeah. The more ridiculous it is, the more dangerous it is. I mean, like, that goes for a lot. Pink dragons typically use their breath weapon in combat before relying on their claws and teeth. So, we've spoken about each of the chromatics, and overall, I would hate... Okay, red dragons are the most terrifying, but I still wouldn't want to go against a fucking orange dragon. Absolutely fucking not. I don't want to be going up against a sodium dragon who just has to blow in your general direction by water, and the whole thing becomes fucking Nagasaki and fucking Hiroshima. Like, I don't want to do that. That sounds terrifying and just wrong, dude.
Yeah, it's like some of these other lesser dragons are, and I use this term loosely because there's nothing lesser about them, just lesser known.
Right.
Some of these lesser dragons could give some of the mainstay dragons a major run for their money.
Very.
Like, with as vicious as a red dragon is, hit him with that sodium breath weapon. All right. The burning and the catching fire thing isn't really going to do much to him. But the orange dragon casts create water on the red dragon. And now suddenly the red dragon just had one of its wings blown off from the explosion.
It is a really terrifying thing, the fact that, like, and you know what? The orange dragon has the high advantage, especially if it's over by water and the red dragon's just fucking pissed. It's not going to stop trying to attack.
Nope.
It's going to try to fucking take him out, but goddamn, that will be terrible in some aspects of just not giving a fuck. Like that is some straight up shit that I can see a red dragon just furiously trying to kill this thing, and just knowing that it can't hit the water. I mean, essentially, like the orange dragon has that fight in my head. But I really want to be fucking with the purple dragon, because I really don't feel like going up against the whole fucking family afterwards.
You'll be sleeping with the fishies, see?
Yeah, you're gonna be sleeping in someone's belly. Jesus, like, goddamn. Okay, let's head to chromatics for a minute. No, sorry, metallics. So metallic dragons. Okay, let's start with the basics. Gold dragons,
fire,
silver dragons,
ice,
bronze dragons.
Bronze are my personal favorite. Lightning.
Mm-hmm. Copper.
Acid.
And brass dragons.
Fire.
Also fire, yeah.
Yeah, which is weird that if you look at the chromatic dragons and the metallic, the chromatics seem to have a little bit more variety in their breath weapons.
Just a little bit, which doesn't unsettle me, but it is a little strange.
Yeah.
But brass dragons are... It's really strange that brass dragons get fucking... what is it? That brass dragons get fire.
Why don't they have, like, thunder?
Oh, you know what it is? They have two breath weapons. They have a fire and they have a sleeping gas.
That's still lame.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit. But here, now let's dive into some really interesting ones. Ready?
Right.
Got mercury dragons.
Oh, God. Those guys, look, they are... Let's put it like this. You know how someone is referred to as mercurial, or they're like Quicksilver. They're fast. Yeah, the mercury dragons are the embodiment of that. To the point where they speak so quickly, some wizards will use time manipulation spells to slow down their speech so they can process the information. Like, mercury dragons are wild in terms of their speed. If I'm remembering this correctly, they're also the fastest of all the dragons.
They are. They are one of the most physically fastest dragons in the D&D universe. And they stop at the 4th edition. Their breath weapon was friggin' light. So you're talking like just straight up blinding light bursting through these people's fucking mouths and just like incinerating or fucking just burning them alive. It's like a fucking magnifying glass intensified light. Now, something really cool for them is they did have the liquid Quicksilver form they can use, and they were immune to any effects that affected their sight, so they couldn't be blinded, period.
Yep.
These things were dangerously stupid.
Also, as an incidental side note, do not eat the meat of a mercury dragon.
Mercury poisoning.
It's poisonous. It will kill you.
That's really cool. I like learning stuff like
it's
that.
It's like one of the little side notes that when I learned it was like, I hadn't considered eating a dragon until just this moment. Now I know not to eat that one. Good to know.
So, Electrum Dragons. Now, looking at an Electrum Dragon, that's pretty interesting. These things haven't been seen since 2nd edition, unfortunately.
Yeah, again, a lot of these dragons fell by the wayside.
It is.
When we say lesser, we don't mean that they're less powerful, just lesser known.
Much lesser known. These things had a breath weapon that's very unique. Their breath weapon consisted of a gas that would essentially be a ray of enfeeblement and a confusion spell wrapped up in one, in a breath weapon. So it didn't kill you.
It just made you dumb and slow.
Right.
Like in the most literal sense of both of those words. Like,
very. Despite being peaceful creatures, Electrum Dragons made for formidable foes if attacked. Their peaceful demeanor granted them a serene alertness during fights, allowing them to observe and anticipate their enemies' strategies. So they were literally the watch and watch what happens.
No, they're more like the fuck around and find out.
Fuck around and find out. That's what I was going for. I don't know why I didn't say it right.
Bruh, you are not the fuck around and find out kind of guy.
I really am not. Not unless I really want to be, and that's not often. That's not how I roll. Iron Dragons. Okay, so these guys...
These are Ferris Dragons. They're a completely different class.
These guys are classified also underneath metallics, but yes, they are. But these guys do classify as Ferris Dragons.
I think Electrum is also Ferris, because you have the metallic and then the chromatic, and the metallics were usually defined, I guess, by not just metal, but I guess by conductivity. But the Ferris ones are slightly different. They're also considered part of the ruling class of dragons in general. They're also they're unique. They are very unique. With Iron Dragons being considered like the be-all, end-all leadership of dragons.
And the Iron Dragon, well, the Electrum Dragon wasn't in the Ferris Dragon category. Only the Iron Dragon is out of all of these. But Iron Dragons, powerful predators, while at most at neutral alignment. These things are still nothing to fuck around with. These things last appeared in 4th edition, roughly.
Yeah.
But, I mean, as far as abilities go, these things are, these things had some shit. So, I mean, naturally Dark Vision and shit, because what else do you give a fucking dragon? But they had stuff like Heat Metal, Stone Shape, Detect Thoughts. And during combat... they had a sleep-inducing breath weapon, and a lot of their stuff was spell-like abilities that were given to them. They preferred to subdue or incapacitate opponents either with spell-like abilities, or sleep-inducing breath weapon.
That was a major change for dragons in 4th edition that carried on over to 5th edition, was the slow elimination of dragon magic. Now you look at their stat blocks, and they had spell-like abilities in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I've seen of the new D&D stuff, the new dragon stat blocks actually give them back their ability to cast spells, which makes an already dangerous dragon far more dangerous, because now they don't have to rely on just their teeth, their claws, and their breath weapon. And then, oh look, layer actions. I have nothing against. I actually like layer actions. I am a little sad that the newest edition is eliminating layer actions.
Ah, man.
But it does open up the field for you to see them out in the wild more frequently. Excuse me. Because layer actions are so potent, it encourages dungeon masters to keep them in the lair to make them more challenging. And given the nerfs that dragons received in general, that was the best way to play it. However, taking away layer actions, giving them back their spellcasting abilities, means that dragons are now, from what I can see, now don't quote me on this, this is what it's looking like, the dragons are going back to being the apex predators they once were.
Ooh, man.
Seeing a dragon in the older editions of D&D, you aren't thinking, I'm either fucking and or killing that dragon tonight. No, you are thinking, I'm glad I didn't bathe. I'm not gonna taste very good
Right.
because you're not necessarily gonna roll up on an ancient red dragon and pwn him like some noob. No, that ancient red dragon is going to be picking his teeth with your rib cage inside of 3 rounds. And
Pretty
that's
much.
generous for you. Not for the dragon, for you. He was being like, oh, this is fun. Okay, I'm done.
Dead.
Dead.
Steel dragons. Now these do appear in 5th edition, also lesser known still. Steel dragons were immune to acid and resistant to poison and especially magic. They had innate abilities to enchant and charm individuals. Now that makes them a little bit different than most of the other dragons on this list here. And their like actual appearance is literally like stone cold steel. Like these things
even their wings look like a series of overlapping blades that just fold in and out. They're gorgeous, not gonna lie. The really good art makes them look pristine.
Very. Now these guys don't really have a. Oh no, they have a breath weapon. It's acid and cloud of poisonous gas. But like the brass dragon, they prefer to talk things out, and they prefer to also use clerical and arcanal magic in their spell lists. Um, Considered a part of the knowledge and trickery domains. If truly losing a battle, a steel dragon was likely to teleport away. So these were more arcane savvy dragons that had a place in their respect.
Also, something that seems to be missing from that is the fact that you're not likely to know a steel dragon when you see one. We were talking about this earlier.
Correct. So steel dragons don't spend their time mostly as dragons. They spend them as actual other people.
Humans, usually. They were charged by the Platinum Dragon himself to learn about, the other races. And steel dragons favor humanity. So once they come of age, they would adopt a human persona and live that life to its maximum extent. And then when that person would die, they quote unquote kill off this persona, archive and section off all their memories of that person in their mind, and that was their horde. The older steel dragons, their horde was all the knowledge and experience accumulated from each unique lifetime. They never set themselves up to be kings, even though they had the ability to do so. They would, one life, they'd be, a simple peasant farmer. Another life, they would be a beggar in the street. The next life after that, a soldier in the city guard, and so on, and so on, and so on. Living for a few decades, sometimes several decades, and then letting the person die off, only to be reborn as someone else. Very rarely adopting a persona that was related to any of their previous ones.
Just so they can't backtrack them.
So committed to this are they, that when they start these new lives, they automatically, on an unconscious level, avoid anyone they knew in their previous life unless this current life naturally intersects with this other person. Even if they loved them, even if they married them, they would do this.
Wow.
Making crazy, a steel dragon revert to its dragon form is an act of desperation on their part.
So we have one more metallic dragon that hasn't been seen since 2nd edition, is Platinum. Now, there's not much to go off of Platinum. Now, what's there to really say about them? They are good alignment. Their Platinum scales were huge, even by dragon standards. Their bodies and eyes radiated powerful auras of light, and sometimes making onlookers unable to discern the color of their scales. Two of the only 3 known Platinum dragons on realm space were wingless worms, and a rare few dragonborn sorcerers who drew their magic through their dragonic heritage were able to manifest traits of platinum dragons as well. There's not much to know about these guys. Like, what kind of breath weapon did these guys have?
Fire. I can tell you that right now. They're
Platinum fire.
Yep.
Right. So
and they were usually platinum dragons naturally. I'm a little hazy on the details, but I don't think they're naturally occurring.
They're not.
This is a blessing from Bahamut, which is why there are so very few of them to begin with. They were never really meant to be a self-perpetuating species. They can mate. They can have troves of treasure. They are dragons. It's just they are essentially, at least to some extent, an avatar of Bahamut himself.
Of one way, shape, or form, these guys did know how to reproduce to an extent. But here's the thing. A couple of people, so Bahamut, right? But there's also Lendis and Tamara, also very prominent platinum dragons of the Dragonic Pantheon.
Yep, they're the children of Bahamut.
Yeah, rumors and legends, though. King Strom the Fourth of Tethir was said to have been protected by a platinum dragon, but who this dragon was is lost to history. So, platinum dragons have been sparingly throughout history, so not many people have seen them, but just the thought of it is really cool. To get attacked by a platinum dragon,
you have to be fucking up hardcore somewhere.
Somewhere, dude.
Your life has definitely gone astray.
Alright. Let's hit Ferris dragons for a minute. So Ferris dragons, like Donovan was saying, are just way different. So they did not have a central deity like the Chromatics or the Metallics. Instead they followed the commands and orders of... I'm going to bust this up so hard. Groglothor.
Gesundheit.
Right. And they were just different on a various level, but there's while there's a few to talk about, the ones that are notable are chromium dragons.
Yep. Those guys are assholes.
They are completely they breathe clouds and cones of frozen crystal and a bolt of solid ice.
Yep.
Cobalt dragons breathe a pure line of pulsing magnetic energy. I do not want to be going up against that thing.
Nope.
Magnetic energy. So you're just talking like your armor being ripped from your soul body. You're hoping that you didn't plant the dagger on your ass because you thought it would be a good place to hold it. Iron dragons, which we talked about before. Nickel dragons, which have a corrosive acid breath weapon, usually found in swamps and marshlands.
Insert Nickelback joke here.
Right. And tungsten dragons.
Ooh, tungsten dragons are dope.
They're viewed as metallic, but they're actually ferrous. And they have a blast of sand as their weapon. So
that was who I was thinking of. It was the tungsten dragons that have
the breath weapon of the sand.
Yep.
Oh yeah, so having like glass or sand being blasted at you would be horrible.
Now, incidentally, tungsten dragons did not make it into 5th edition. I don't think they were in 4th edition either.
Mm-mm.
And someone who I will mention later on did do a thing on a lot of these dragons, and he has an ongoing series about them. I'll plug this in the end so that you guys can watch this and see for yourselves. This is just an overview, but this guy, he's not only does he dive into some of this information, but he actually created 5th edition stat blocks for a lot of these dragons.
We do highly recommend to go support him as well. We thank you for listening to our podcast, and just understand that we are gamers and we love doing this shit. This is just freaking amazing for us. So, let's step up to another type of dragon. 3rd and 4th edition only. Planar dragons. So planar dragons, native to planes, other than the prime material plane, Unlike most other true dragons, planar dragons were not natural spellcasters, lacking the affinity for sorcery that other species had. They did, however, have a variety of spell-like abilities.
Mm-hmm.
So, you had the innermost planes, shadow dragons and blight dragons lived in the Shadowfeld. Fairy dragons and mirage dragons and wretch dragons lived in the Feywild. Which, by the way, there's not much to go off of for these, but you can go check them out on the Forgotten Realms fandom.com for more information on these to go diving deeper. The transitive planes were astral dragons, co-dragons, ectoplasmic dragons, and pack dragons living in the astral plane. You had ethereal dragons lived in the ethereal plane and outer planes. The outer plane dragons were battle dragons, radiant dragons, adamantine, Elysian, arboreal, beast, and octinus. All lived in different upper planes. While howling dragons, hellfire worms, stick dragons, pyroclastic, rust, and Tartarian, as well as gloom, coal, and death mask dragons lived in lower planes. What the fuck is this? Holy shit.
There's dragon for everything.
There is. Additionally, the demonically twisted white dragon, known as a frost-forged worm, could be found in the abyss. Then you had chaos dragons, lived in limbo, axial dragons lived in Mechanus, and concordant dragons lived in the Outlands. Jesus fuck.
That's not even getting into like the sun dragon, the moon dragon. Oh man.
We're not done with this.
We still have the
gems.
The gems to do.
Which the gem dragons haven't been seen, unfortunately, since 3rd edition. But I guess if you're really savvy on your dragons...
Well, actually, Fizbane's Treasury of Dragons for 5th edition adds them.
Okay, that's good.
And also adds them for like a draconic sorcery. If you're a draconic bloodline sorcerer and you have Fizbane's Treasury of Dragons, you can have draconic ancestry from a gem dragon.
Okay.
However, the gem dragons don't touch on the same types of breath weapons that the other dragons that we have,
covered already.
Actually spoken about. They're different. They do things like necrotic, psychic, force damage, and I feel like I'm forgetting one.
Right. So there's amethyst, emerald, sapphire, topaz, crystal, obsidian, Belduril, dragons, and ruby dragons. So these we can actually dive into more. So yeah, you're right. So these dived back into 5th edition. They were skipped in 4th. Their breath weapon. Some shrieked like banshees when its attendant lethal power, but only could do so twice a day. Others projected a line of force with concussive effect that would either stun or injure the being caught within. So they literally shot an optic blast, literally, like a force, hyperconcussive force to just aim at these guys and just take on damage. Absolutely silly. Emerald Dragon, I just want to say, gem dragons from an aesthetic point look beautiful. Like, absolutely gorgeous.
Like living gemstones, essentially.
Very much. Emerald dragons use sonic vibrations. Sonic, that's the other one you were thinking of. Do sonic damage with their attacks. Sapphire dragons are, let's see, psionic. No, hold on a minute. They also used high-pitched sonic frequencies. What the hell did the Emerald Dragon do more? Hold on a minute. Maybe I didn't see it well. Sonic vibration, sonic damage. Or maybe it was just sonic damage. They had a bunch of other
Damage types.
a bunch of other different spell-like abilities, like they were saying before. Yeah, it was just mostly just sonic damage for the Emerald Dragon too. Okay, I want to make sure I didn't pass anything because that was wild. All right. Topaz dragons. Topaz dragons were interesting. The look of the Topaz dragons are absolutely beautiful. They had a blast of water. I'm sorry. Topaz dragons breathe a cone of dehydration, ironically resembling a blast of water. So these guys dehydrated you, causing salt and other suspended compounds and particles to precipitate out. That's terrifying. Holy shit. And then we're immune to cold. Fuck, bro.
In Fizbane's Treasury of Dragons, they breathe necrotic.
That's really cool, though. Crystal dragons. Now, crystal dragons look really interesting. That's the most unique dragon design I've seen yet. I mean, we've been through a lot so far. Breath weapon of a crystal dragon was a cloud of glowing shards, forming a cone of up to 50 to 60 feet in length for adult. Shards struck and harmed all those caught in the blast. So it's literally just crystal shards tearing people apart, though.
Kind of like Cloud of Daggers.
Yeah, a little bit. And that's really interesting. Obsidian. Now, obsidian dragons. I can only guess what their breath weapon is, but I'm going to look into it. Let's see. Feels like a true dragon. Obsidian dragons radiated a fear aura-inducing aura. They were creatures of fire, immune to its effects, but vulnerable to those of ice and cold. The breath weapon of an obsidian dragon was a cone of fire, so they breathed regular fire.
Well, it kind of makes sense given,
how you make obsidian.
Right. Although, I probably would have given them a hit somewhere, because obsidian is, give them bonus damage to their claw and bite attacks, but make them lower their AC.
A little bit,
or give them like bashing, not bashing. I'm thinking of another system. Blunt weapons, like maces and stabs and whatnot, do double damage.
Right, that makes sense. Now here's a dragon that hasn't been seen since 2nd edition: Beljural dragons. Now these things are also swimming dragons, and are a little different. They have 2 breath weapons. The first was a silent, cold blast of energy that discharged as a bolt of green, violet, or blue light that crackled and flashed and absorbed heat, light, and vibratory energy, and released a massive electrical blast. Interestingly, it's sometimes left behind a handful of Beljurals. The dragon could only use it in a seismically active environment.
Interesting.
That's a very situational weapon.
It is. And I'm also picking up on a bit of a theme here with these dragons that did not make it into 4th and 5th edition.
Yeah.
That, given how they simplified the mechanics in 4th, and then completely omitted some in 5th, for example, that breath weapon, there's no analog to it in either of those.
For really to do it.
Right? Just like the Purple Dragon's plasma breath weapon, or the salt one, or the sodium one. There's no real analog for that at all.
Right.
So you kind of have to rely on someone else to come up with the mechanic, or figure it out yourself if you want to use those. And that's I'm just going to come out and say it. It seems like not so much lazy writing, but pandering to lazy people.
So here is something very interesting. Their second breath weapon was a gout of lava.
For the obsidian?
Yeah, no, for the Bilduro dragon,
That seems like it would be more appropriate for
obsidian.
yeah, because obsidian is made from lava remnants.
Bilduro dragons were also wholly immune to any and all fire or heat-based effects, so you can target this thing with any sort of fire.
No, but you could blow them the fuck up.
Yeah, you probably could. Yeah, that makes sense.
Hit him with that sodium. He starts laughing that haha, this isn't gonna hurt me. And then he flies through a cloud and explodes.
Jesus Christ.
Like dumbass.
And ruby dragons. Ruby dragons have also not been seen since 2nd edition, and their ability was their breath weapon. But unlike their red kin, ruby dragon's breath was a wave of intense metal melting magical heat that melted and ignited anything and anyone unlucky enough to be caught in the breath's way. The intensity of the heat increased as a ruby dragon aged. Items made of light material such as paper were incinerated and destroyed within 6 seconds. Non-metallic items were destroyed within 12, and metals melted after 18 seconds. You are just fucked. No wonder they didn't import this thing over. This thing would just kill everything.
This is like the boss level of fucking dragon fights right here.
This thing could kill Tiamat, probably.
No, probably not. But
that's stupid, though.
But I mean, like, think about it, right? White dragons and silver dragons are cold,
right?
And chromatic dragons, the chrome dragons, not the chromatic, chrome dragons,
right?
They're all cold based.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things they used to have was a weakness to fire. Now, if you pay attention to the dragons themselves, they took out those weaknesses in 4th edition and 5th edition. So hitting a red dragon with cold just does normal damage. But when you think about it, right, it's a fire dragon. You hit it with a cone of cold, then it should take a bit more damage because, well, fire. You spray liquid nitrogen on a bonfire, puts the fire out.
Right.
But they don't put that in there. That right there, there's really not, like the purple dragon, there's not a lot of defense against that. You're just
not
like,
really.
It's like, all right, everyone, bite the pillow. The dragon's going in dry.
Pretty much. All right. Let's take a look at the lung dragons. Now, these things, like Donovan had said, these things are pretty much of Chinese and Japanese mythology-looking dragons. Now, here's what differentiated them amongst other dragons. No breath weapons whatsoever. However, they had various other powerful magical abilities, which when you consider what, Oriental dragons from different movies, video games, and such have, none of them breathe fire. They're all using different magical abilities and such as to, enhance their abilities. So that makes sense.
They channeled their power in different ways.
They are much more affluent to wide range of moral and ethical alignments, too. They had... Every dragon was different, and which was really cool because that means that it was a different type of, it was a different type of way to speak to the different dragons. You couldn't go up to a basic type of dragon and, just expect it to be one way or the other. It was, every one of them was different.
They had their personalities. They had their, their preferred terrains. They had their preferred. Even their hoarding was unique for the most part between dragons. Red dragons were well known for hoarding everything of value. Black dragons preferred to hoard things that were more historically valuable. For example, let's say you're traveling through a swamp and you run into an ancient black dragon,
right,
and you don't want to fight it. You happen to have a few coins from an ancient empire that fell a few centuries ago. You offer that as tribute to the black dragon, it's more likely to let you pass because it loves that shit. It wants treasures that belong to fallen empires, things that, especially if they are older than those things that represent their dominance over it.
Right.
It's what gets them wet, I guess you could say.
I mean, I guess so, man. I mean, like, everyone has their kink to it.
I'm gonna piss real fast.
So,
All right, sorry about that.
Okay.
Interlude.
So, social-wise, lung dragons were also part of the celestial bureaucracy, which, if you're not familiar, which a lot of people aren't with mythology, the celestial bureaucracy is actually the Chinese pantheon, more or less. So people like Wukong and stuff, but the lung dragons pretty much, stayed up there with the celestial bureaucracy, and it was just really neat. Overall, the lung dragons are just a very interesting part of D&D culture and tasks of that were just so much different than the other dragons, and that's what's really cool about them that I enjoy.
Now that I'm thinking about it, a lung dragon would be an interesting warlock patron.
That would be very interesting. I do like that.
Like for those that do that sort of thing, celestial warlocks are a thing, and lung dragons represented the celestial bureaucracy. If you manage to get a hold of one, you could be a celestial warlock, and a lung dragon is your patron. Now, how that might flavor your magic is subjective, depending on your imagination and point of view. But I do believe they also added a dragon warlock to use dragons in that same way. So
could work.
It could work either way.
So now these are just miscellaneous dragons. They don't fit into a single category, and we're just going to glance over them, give a thought. All right?
Mm-hmm.
Ready for this? Air dragons, extremely rare dragons native to the planet Collier.
Planet?
Exactly. So anyway,
that's right. The D&D multiverse, the crystal spheres are all planets, basically.
Right.
So that makes sense. Sorry.
Brain stellar dragons, underground dwelling mixes of dragons and mind flayers.
Oh God, yeah. We're gonna have to do one of these on mind flayers because Jesus titty fucking Christ, mind flayers are freaky, and the shit that they have experimented with was like this. The brain dragon is what happens when you take a mind flayer tadpole and you put it in a dragon. Nightmare fuel.
Yeah, no.
You take an apex predator and you take a conquering race of parasitic creatures and you combine them.
That's no.
Like whatever mind flayer or fucking whatever the fuck they call their the brains that govern them. The term escapes me at the moment. Whoever thought that was a good idea should have been pulled out of a tank and just left to air dry for eternity.
Cobra dragons. Greedy, evil dragons known to live in Karatur with the lung dragons.
Yeah, I can see that.
Dalzamus. Three-headed dragons native to the Horde lands.
Horde lands. I believe that's a reference to Takir,
Probably.
the Cons of Takir, Magic the Gathering. I don't know.
That might be. We've already went over Fang dragons. Force dragons. Powerful, aloof, and arrogant, transparent dragons.
How can you be arrogant if no one can see you? It's like, huh, I'm better than you. Dude, who said that?
I don't have a physical form.
Oh, so that means I can just ignore you. Would you walk right through them?
Mist dragons. No description given. Moon dragons. Evil color-changing dragons that inhabited moons.
Yep. They, I believe that there's a 5e template for that one. That and sun dragons.
Prismatic dragons. Powerful, charismatic, and flamboyant, multicolored dragons.
So in other words, the Liberace of dragons.
For all those out there who are needing the equivalency of if your character's gay or not, prismatic dragons. Radiant dragons. Large, iridescent dragons capable of flying through wild spaces. Natural spelljammers.
Oof.
That's really cool.
That sounds like a plot hook, actually.
Rattleleer dragon. A wingless species of dragon-like creatures native to warm, sandy deserts with snake-like features. So they sound like a giant snake.
Actually, that sounds more like not a true dragon.
Right.
But still.
Song dragons. Mysterious dragons who live throughout the realms in the guise of humans.
Me? How's it spelled? S-O-N-G or...
S-O-N-G. You know what this one reminds me of? There's a Genshin Impact is a game, right? There's a character that was a deity that has a connection to a dragon. That's what it just sounds like to me anyway.
Huh.
But who lived throughout the realms in the guise of humans. So, like a disguise, I'm guessing?
This could be the whole thing with steel dragons.
Right? No, it could be something similar, yeah. Sun dragons. Benevolent dragons that lived on the surface of suns. Opposite of the moon.
Yeah, pretty much.
Stellar dragons. Enormous intellectual dragons that inhabited the what the fuck is that? Phlogiston. The fuck is that?
The Flotsam?
Phloxton? Yeah, I guess.
How's it spelled?
Phlogiston.
Huh.
Phlogston. I don't know. And Viships. Cowardly, flightless dragons native to Zakara. I think that's from like Arabian Adventures, isn't it?
Arabian Nights or Al-Qadam.
Probably.
Which was the book for that.
That sounds like it. Okay. So lesser dragons. The term lesser dragon referred to dragon-type creatures that did not become more powerful with age. It did not necessarily mean they were less powerful than true dragons.
They just, what you see is what you get kind of deal.
Dragon turtles. Massively dangerous creatures that lived in the oceans.
Oh, yeah. Breath weapon is a line of steam. Which honestly, I'm surprised that Dragon Turtles made it into 5th edition.
I am too. But that's because they seem like a D&D creature you'd fight.
They do, but, with their breath weapon being a line of steam.
Yeah.
They seem to be adverse to the odd breath weapon types. Anything that doesn't fall into these certain categories, they're just kind of like, let's not do that. It overcomplicates things. But it's like, look, part of I'm going to age myself here. I started with AD&D, and I played through 3rd edition, 3.5. I dipped my toe into 4th edition and felt very dirty about it, and still do. And 5th edition, I've been jamming with for a while. I'm going to be bluntly honest. I've seen the changes that they've made to the game, and I honestly feel like, Dungeon Masters, listen. I get that our job is hard. You have to become the god of a miniature universe. It ain't easy. I get it. Been doing it for a while. But if you've got a mid-maxer that you don't know how to control, remember, you're God. Don't bend over and let this dude take advantage of you, or chick. I mean, ladies, we know you play. You may not talk about it, but we know you play it. I see you.
Oh, yeah.
I see you. I see you through the microphone. I'm talking to you. Here's the point. Instead of asking for Wizards to dumb down the game, ask for more content like these dragons. Okay, this mid-max character is immune to lightning damage, thunder damage, and buttfuck damage. Have a fight a ruby dragon. Guess what? All your immunities mean nothing when your armor is melting through your skin.
Orange dragon.
You know, kaboom. Need I say more? There are thousands and thousands of monsters from the older editions that
just haven't come
never
back yet.
made it, but you like your mid-maxing munchkin dude would level them. And of course, please do not be afraid to give some of these creatures that are smart enough to have them character classes.
Yes.
Okay, so you have a werewolf, right? And you know your party's just gonna Watusi this werewolf. Well, make him a werewolf lord, and then give him 5 levels of ranger.
There you go.
Or better yet, give him 5 levels of barbarian.
Right.
And
there
then
you go.
Specialize in hand-to-hand combat. Guess what? That werewolf lord is now going to be hitting a hell of a lot harder.
Way harder. And then I'll age myself a little bit, but I mean, I started with 3rd edition, unfortunately.
Nothing unfortunate about that.
Very true. It was just unfortunate because the person that was playing with it had no idea what they were doing either.
Now that is genuinely unfortunate.
It is. And then the next edition I did play was 4th edition. I had a really good DM for that. My favorite thing about 4th edition was the mechanic for it that they had, the couple things that they did. It felt like a video game, which, being a gamer like that, I was all into. But 5th edition is where I really, really like. It's not as inventive as 5th edition, as 3rd edition was, but my whole thing is that I've been able to have fun making the campaigns in 5th edition because of my previous knowledges of D&D. So DMs out there, like Donovan has said, go for it. Make some stuff up. Make your players more powerful so you can do some more like outlandish shit. Make it happen. Make everything happen out there, your universe, and make it fucking rock. Let's run over the last couple of these, but we have Dragonels, Drakes, Hellfire Worms, diabolical descendants of dragons who made pacts with devils.
Yeah, because here's the funny thing, and this is a little bit of a side note tangent here. Making a deal with the proverbial devil. And D&D, if you're playing a character, it is a literal devil sometimes. Those dragons right there are proof that tieflings should be born of any race.
Right.
Or species. It doesn't matter. Look, anyone who says an elf would sell their soul to be a more powerful wizard, first things first, that means you're not playing the elf right. All right. Second, what is this elf doing with a bunch of dirtlings? All right. But that's my personal gripe there. If a dragon, apex predator, born of pure magic, can and will sell its soul for extra
devil
power than anyone else can. Could you imagine a tiefling dragon?
No, I can't, and that's a little horrifying.
Like having like you have this dragon that sold its soul, made some babies, right? And then eventually dies and becomes this hellspawn dragon thing. But its descendants are descended from this dragon that made a deal with the devil. You know, a few generations later, bam, you get a tiefling dragon. It looks like a dragon, but it's got these weird colored scales, extra horns, and some extra abilities. I want to see that. Imagine trying to, explain that.
Missed opportunities. I'll have to think about that next time.
But, yeah.
Landworms, pseudo-dragons that are tiny, playful creatures that were highly valued as familiars.
A little side note for pseudo-dragons. Pseudo-dragons are tiny, basically like cats, but dragons with scorpion stingers. What a lot of people miss about them is they like cute names. The cutesier, the better. Pseudo-dragons actually, culturally, have bragging rights where they will brag about their cutesy name and will give mad respect to the pseudo dragon who has the sweetest, cutesiest name you can think of. That's how they rank themselves amongst themselves.
I gotta remember that for the next time I make a
If
wizard
you
with a
get
familiar.
a pseudo dragon and you name it Glitter Dust Sparkle Fart, it's practically going to be the king of pseudo dragons.
I need to make a fucking edgelord wizard with a familiar and call him Mr. Dusty Knuckles. Sea worms, legless, wingless creatures that lived in the seas around Zakara. Scalamandrians, underground creatures that possessed anti-magic properties. Sunworms, large yellow dragons that lived on plains that could take a form of pure energy. And last but not least, wyverns, large winged lizards with 2 legs and a barbed venomous tail. That, my friends, will do it for this session. So you guys have heard everything that we have had to say about dragons, but I really do implore you, go to ForgottenRealms.fandom.com and look up Dragon. Okay? Look up everything you could find out about these guys. We did not dive it deep. Also, look at
Dungeon Dad. This is a gentleman on YouTube who likes to go into the deep lore of Dungeons and Dragons from 1st edition to 5th edition. And since a lot of these, he does requests generally through Patreon, but if it's a good enough request, he just might do it in spite of it. But he likes to take the older monsters from 1st, 2nd, and 3rd edition that didn't make it into 4th or 5th edition. And he will break it down, and he gives away free PDFs with a 5th edition stat block for the monster in question. Some of these dragons feature on his channel. I highly encourage you to, check him out. His release schedule can occasionally be a little wonky, but the information is always good and engaging. And trust me when I tell you, if you're a DM and you're looking to add a little something extra, check out Dungeon Dad. I mean, come on. Wouldn't you want to have your party go against a chocolate golem? Or how about a teddy bear golem?
Oh boy.
These are actual creatures. Some of these dragons, like the purple dragon, orange dragon, brown dragon, the tungsten dragon, he's covered, and he has 5th edition stat blocks for them, ready to go.
It'll be a really fun time. I promise you guys. He makes some great content. We're also gonna give a shout out to Tulok the Barbarian. He is a YouTuber who has stopped his making characters videos now. But if you want some ideas of how to make some of your favorite fictional characters in D&D, there is Tulok the Barbarian. But there's also, I believe it's D&D Adventures on YouTube. It's something like that. But he makes also fictional characters on D&D, and they both make them a little differently. And they have a lot of fun with them. So if you want some fun, more D&D content, please, by all means, look them up. Also, D&D Shorts. He is a guy that literally makes short videos about D&D with fun little steps, like the 5 most powerful first-level builds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Those are really fun. I'd highly recommend. And then the Infinite Money Cheat. Also really stupid funny.
Or the 101 uses for the prestidigitation cantrip and how broken it actually is.
Really silly little things. Highly recommend it. And there's a bunch of other D&D videos out there I'm sure you could find on your own.
I will be more than happy to drop a couple more on you guys right now. For lore purposes, especially if you're the kind of DM and you have the kind of group that loves deep lore, check out Mr. Rex. He does deep lore dives on everything from mind flayers to dwarves. He's touched on a few of the things that we have spoken about in the past. Definitely a worthwhile watch. And if you're feeling like you want to add a little something extra to your game, Maybe you're finding liches boring. Or maybe you want a unique dragon that isn't on the list. Check out Pointy Hat. This guy takes D&D and he gives it a little bit of a twist. He'll take a class, a character, a monster, and he'll give you a little bit of information on it, and then he gives you a new version of it. He's done dragons. He's done liches. In fact, he's currently working on a series where he's doing a lich version of every class.
Oh my god.
Worth watching if you want a lich, but you're kind of not wanting to do a classic lich. Especially good if you have a party of veterans who've been playing D&D for quite a while. Give them a lich with a twist.
Or just give them a whole fucking clan of liches. God.
Anyways, that's enough from this chatty old guy. You kids stay classy.
All of you, roll for initiative.